Well, interestingly, the Dean made contact with me, the Dean of the medical school, Professor Andrew Zuckerman, world-renowned virologist and expert in hepatitis B, worked very closely with the World Health Organization, was deeply involved in hepatitis B vaccination, a great advocate of hepatitis B vaccination. Different story, but nonetheless, there he was in the general apparatchik of the vaccine advocates. And he said to me that he had been contacted by the Department of Health and by certain members of the Royal College of Child Health, who had made him aware of this funding. And I said, yes, this is a grant that we've got from them, and it's perfectly respectable, and we're conducting the science. And he said, there's a conflict of interest. There's a clear conflict of interest. And I couldn't understand that. Why? Why was there a conflict of interest? I had no conflict of interest. I was asked to take this grant, to conduct a piece of science and give an answer. That wasn't a conflict of interest. The funding would be disclosed in the paper that wrote up this science, that the funding came from the Legal Aid Board, but beyond that, where was the conflict? Anyway, I wrote back to him and said, your suggestion that there's a conflict of interest has exercised my mind greatly over the last several months, and I cannot see where it lies. And I laid out for him the context of my discussions with the lawyers and the work that was to be done. And he wrote back to me and couldn't precisely define what the conflict was, but talked about if a legal action was anticipated and preliminary discussions had already taken place, then there was a conflict. And that really didn't make a lot of sense to me. I wrote back to him again and reiterated that we'd been asked to undertake a piece of science that wasn't seeking a particular answer. I wouldn't have got involved in the first place if there was any effort at coercion or demanding, but we own the data. They didn't own the data. The lawyers didn't own it, and we would do what we felt was scientifically appropriate with it. And I have every faith in the lawyers. They seemed very concerned, genuinely concerned for these children. They weren't in any way ambulance chasers, but nonetheless, there was some clear problem for the Dean in this, and he ultimately refused to take this money, and I said, send it back to the Legal Aid Board, send it back. We don't want it. If you're not going to let us to do this, then we won't do it. And anyway, one of my colleagues said, we'll put it into an account in the hospital, a charitable account in the hospital where grants were run, and let's see if that's okay. And so we did. Now, interestingly, the Dean has just appeared as a witness on behalf of the prosecution at the General Medical Council. Professor Andrew Zuckerman, now 7 years retired and clearly deeply frustrated that he should be dragged out of retirement to have to give his evidence on this case. But nonetheless, his first foray was to say that, yes, when this money was transferred by the accountant of the Royal Free Hospital Medical School, it was too late. I didn't know about it. It had already happened. I couldn't stop it. It's interesting that he actually signed the cheque for the transfer. Surprising, that. Given the fact that it had already happened by the time that he knew about it. Nonetheless, an interval of 11 years can cloud one's mind, one's memory of things. And there we are. But that was just the first error that he made.